When we anticipate the gentle voice of the Lord, our hearts become sensitive to the delight of God's peace in us, which then acts upon our being out of control from fear, panic, or doubt. If you think about it, doubt is just faith in a negative. And it allows room for us to question the true nature of God towards us. Doubt releases a flow for pessimism to govern the situation and how we face it. And our acceptance of negativity as normal behavior actually devalues God's majesty to an unattainable reality. It's presence that activates the power for us to control any destabilizing influence. And when self-control is partnered with our expectation of God's gentleness, it gives us ears to hear Him saying, calm down. Don't be afraid. Be still and know that I am God. I'm big enough for this. I've made provision for this. And that produces the reality of God's imposing character. Self-control normalizes our heart. It allows us space for His perspective to become ours. I adore the breathing space that self-control gives me. It's the space to gather myself, to think, to rejoice, to refocus, and to realign. I don't want to align myself with my circumstances, but with who God is for me. Self-control is like having the Holy Spirit come up from behind, wrap His arms around you, and gently say, be still. I remember a dream I had many years ago where I was relentlessly chased by a horde of orc-like creatures. It's a huge army that chased me for days, and it was gaining ground, and I was becoming exhausted. And just as I'm looking for a place to make a last stand, I see something shimmering off to the right, and so I run towards it. And it's just a translucent shower curtain suspended by a rail in midair. And I hear the Holy Spirit say, go inside. So I do. But I can still see enough to know that the mob is coming towards me. And I'm realizing how big they really are. So as they're getting closer, I get a hold of my sword and I begin to draw it out in the dream. When the Holy Spirit takes hold of my hand and pushes the sword back into the sheath, and He chuckles and He says, you won't be needing that. He's got His arms around me from behind, and I can still hear the gentleness in His voice every time I became fearful or nervous. Be at peace, Graham. It's all covered. And just when the orcs are upon us, suddenly they split and they go around on both sides of us. And it's like they totally couldn't see us. And the Holy Spirit starts laughing. And I'm thinking, shh, they'll hear you. But of course, they didn't. He laughed so loud, but they didn't have ears to hear Him. And what was happening? The Holy Spirit was showing me my secret place where I am untouchable. Your secret place isn't something out there. It's in here. It's on the inside of you, in the inner man of your spirit, where your spirit mingles with God's Spirit. And self-control steps back into that secret place instead of rushing headlong into circumstances. And it calms us to remember that we never need to charge into the obvious fight before us, like the one that points to people as our enemy, or the problems that scream to be logically solved right now. Our life in Jesus isn't like that. And self-control allows us to be fully persuaded that the Holy Spirit is going to help us get a hold of our true self. And it opens a stairway to join God in His elevated perspective. Who does He want to be for us in this situation? What do we get to practice here? How will we become more like him because of what's going on? When I was a lot younger, people would often press me for a decision. Well, what are you going to do? And foolishly, I would step forward to give my opinion instead of stepping back into my spirit and listening first. It got me into so much trouble. And then I'd have to go back and undo the mess that I'd created. But it was good motivation to learn. And I learned to take full advantage of self-control. And just say, I don't know what to think yet, but I'll let you know when I do. And it was funny how many people continued to press me for an answer. But I just made a game of it in the end. No sense in getting aggravated. I'd realized I was getting to practice self-control and became really thankful for the opportunity to do so. Because I was discovering that self-control can be really useful. Self-control gives us the space to see more clearly, to hear more accurately, and to speak only what we need to say. Jesus used it all the time when he said, I only do what I see my Father doing, and I only speak the words that he is speaking. Now here's the primary key that unlocks the fruit of self-control as God intended it. The key is that you see and think about self-control as a delight, not as a discipline. I can't emphasize enough how vital that is. Otherwise, you'll see self-control as a heavy obligation instead of the massive provision it is in our life with God and with everyone that we meet. Look, at the end of the day, one thing is certain in this life. Everyone will do what they most want to do. We can offer teaching, share wisdom, and mentoring, but people will choose and do what they wish. The price we pay for having no self-control is hugely expensive and time-consuming. Self-control has a perspective that I get to do this with God who adores me. Not, I'm forced to do this by the constraints of God's heavy rules and regulations. We can exchange those old performance mindsets about self-control for a new spiritual delight that we anticipate becoming a wonderful experience with God. John 14:23 says, if anyone loves me, he'll keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our abode with him. Hear the affection of God in that. Beloved, if you love me, and I know you do, hey, no worries. You'll keep my commandments. You'll know how much you're totally loved by me and how delighted I am to live this life with you. Gentleness and self-control, they're always in partnership. God doesn't threaten to withdraw his love unless they are obeyed. That's not true to his unchanging nature. Obedience and self-control both are motivated by having been so wonderfully loved by God that we choose to do the things we know please him. The fruit of the Spirit is the beautiful, unchanging loveliness of God's constant nature towards us. So it must be fully explored using our life situations. And that will create a lens, a mindset, and a language that will empower us in self-control to enjoy life and take advantage of God's favor. God is happy with you because you're in Jesus. Jesus said it so beautifully in his prayer to the Father in John 17. He prayed that the glory which you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one, just as we are one, I in them and you in me. that they may be perfected in our unity, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you have loved me. Isn't that gorgeous? Self-control delivers us from becoming out of control based on our circumstances. And it gives us a beautiful, wide open space where we can encounter who God is for us, and we can enjoy his love and passion in being with us. Consider what your lens for the fruit of self-control has been and how it's upgrading now. But most of all, enjoy discovering all that God has for you in the wonderful fruit of self-control, and have fun taking all that for a spin. As always, let us know what you discover in the comments, and let us know if you become unstuck or if you've got a question. Thank you so much for listening.